Now that you have your child theme installed and activated, you're ready to begin customizing your website. The child theme that you installed comes pre-made with some code that you can use to make customizations on your own site. And the child theme also gives you the flexibility to modify the existing code to suit your own tastes and create your own customizations. I occasionally update this code to add new features to the child theme. So if this video may differ a little from what you see in your own child theme, that's okay, because above each code snippet is a brief explanation of what the snippet does. Let this explanation guide you in understanding and implementing the child theme on your own website. First, I'm going to show you how the child theme integrates with the HTML of a web page. So let's create a basic page and take a look. I've created a page with some text, and I've added all of the HTML tags that are utilized on the web page. One very important side note here: when you're using the child theme and adding customizations to a web page, you'll need to use the HTML editor mode. Many people are accustomed to using the visual mode when using WordPress. Being in the HTML mode will allow you to see and modify the HTML tags on a web page. This will be necessary as we get started. To switch to the HTML editor mode, click this tab. I encourage you to work in the HTML editor mode because this mode gives you full control over the HTML code of the web page. Don't worry if you don't know much about HTML at this point, but I would recommend learning the basics. Knowing the basics of HTML can give you a better understanding of what's happening on a web page and can also help you understand when you have problems with the visual appearance of a web page. So let's take a look at this page. I want to first point out a few HTML elements that you should be familiar with. This is a p tag. The p tag is the markup for identifying a paragraph on a web page. This is the h tag. The h tag can be designated h1 through h6. This tag basically represents different headings within a web page. H1 would be considered the main heading, while H3 would be considered a less important heading. This is an image tag. In HTML, this is how images are defined so that the browser can find and present an image on a page. This is a span tag. Basically, this tag is used when you want to customize something that's already found within another element. For example, if you want to customize one word that's within a paragraph or a p tag, this will allow you to do just that. These are the main tags that we'll deal with directly on the web pages we create. Now, let's take a look at our child theme and see what kind of customizations we can start with. Here's a piece of code that's called a class selector. This class selector I've titled Box. I created and named this class selector. When this class selector is placed within any HTML element, it will add a 2 pixel wide red border with 5 pixels of padding against the element, and it will center any text that's within the element. So here's how we add this class selector to our web page. Let's put this class selector within a p tag and see what the results look like. This process is the same no matter what type of tag we're adding the class selector to. First, within the p tag, we'll add this. Class equals quote, the word box, and end quote. Now let's save the page. Let's take a look at the page and see what the result is. As you can see, we have a paragraph with a 2 pixel wide red border around it. There's padding of 5 pixels between the border and the text is centered in the box. As you can see, the box goes from one end of the page to the other. This is because the p tag spans the width of the page. What if we only want the border around the text? This can be done with the span tag mentioned earlier. Let's go back over to our page editor. Make sure that we're using the HTML editor, and now let's copy and paste this element below . Now we'll delete the code we added to the P tag, and now we'll add the span tag within the element. Now we'll place our cursor where we want the span element to end, and we'll put the closing tag, which looks like this. Now we'll save this page, and let's take a look at the result. As you can see, when we add this class selector to the span tag placed directly around the text, it places a 2-pixel wide red border around the text. There's a 5-pixel padding between the border and the text is centered in the box. This is basically how all class selectors work. Let's take a look at the next customization code provided with the WordPress child theme you generated. This class selector puts a yellow background around any element. This gives the appearance of highlighted text. If you really want something to stand out on your web page, this would be an effective way to achieve this. So let's add this class selector to a heading. Let's create an H2 heading. Here is the opening tag for an H2 heading. Now we'll add the class selector we want. Type in class equals quote the word highlight dash background end quote. Now we'll add an H2 heading title and then add the closing tag. When we're using HTML tags, you must always need an opening and a closing tag. So now let's save the page and take a look. The background behind the H2 heading is now highlighted yellow. Let's say that we wanted the background to be orange instead of yellow. This could be accomplished in 2 different ways. First, we could modify the existing class selector in our child theme CSS, or we could create an entirely new class selector within the CSS that would make an orange highlighted background. Here's how to do this. First, we would create a new class selector in the CSS. All class selectors, when created in your child theme, will begin with a dot and then the class name and then an opening curly bracket. I'll name this class selector .orange background. Then I'll add the CSS code that styles the element. In this case, the code is background-color : then the number sign and the hexadecimal code for the color orange. You can look up the hexadecimal color codes online by simply searching the term hexadecimal color codes. Once you've input the hexadecimal color code, place a semicolon after the code and then finish off the new set of code with a closing curly bracket. Now, when you add this class selector orange background, the background color for the element will be changed to orange. In the next video, we'll finish off this series by looking at more of the code found within the child theme. We'll also wrap up by discussing some ideas for learning how to add your own customizations to your child theme.